Are we on now? Are we?
We're rolling for 20 minutes.
Have you actually? Yeah, okay. A season of rugby takes a lot out of you. Pre-season's when you put back into the body and you rebuild yourself to go again.
How would you describe pre-season in 3 words?
Grueling is definitely one of them. Rewarding, and then I would say recovery, physically and mentally.
Ollie, another season comes to an end. How's it been this year?
I mean, it's been a very different season to any season I've had before. Was cut short in sort of end of November, early December. So unfortunately, I tore my ACL away against Northampton. So that presents completely unique challenges that I've never really had to face before in my career. I've had sort of 12, 14-week injuries before, but to be out for such an extended period has been pretty unique. So it's been frustrating, particularly like the boys going really well. You want to be involved in that, but I've also learned a huge amount through the process, and it's been very rewarding, sort of seeing where I was post-surgery to where I am now. It's amazing how quickly you can make progress in just a couple of months.
And when it's like a really challenging period like that, how do you find coping with it? Do you break it down into blocks of your return? How did you view your return?
Yeah, so for this injury in particular, I mean, we sat down and went through this from a nutrition perspective, but yeah, for this injury in particular, we sort of put it into blocks to kind of break it down because it is such a long time out. I felt that was the best way to sort of comprehend what the process of healing and rehabilitation and getting back to running that I was going to have to go through. So we blocked it. We had the sort of block 1, block 2, and I'm just about into block 3 now, which is this is the fun bit. I'm back running, back doing some skills, hopefully tackling things very soon as well. So yeah.
Brilliant. And so when you look at those blocks, what was the biggest challenge that you thought across all those 3 phases? Was there any particularly big challenges that you had to face and that you found tough?
I feel like they're all difficult for different reasons. Certainly, I mean, I've had a handful of surgeries before, but the pain after this one was on a different level. So you have that kind of acute challenge, which is very obvious. Everyone's expecting it. You know that when you have your knee cut open, it's going to be sore when you wake up. So there's that kind of challenge, and dealing with that, dealing with having to have general anaesthetic and your sleep being affected, all the things that come with that, your stomach being in bits. So there's that side, and then there's also the kind of the longer term psychological side, the frustration not being able to play, the feeling that your knee doesn't quite feel right yet, and having to be patient on that side. So I think over an extended period, that is probably the toughest part of it. But certainly when you wake up after that surgery, well, actually it takes about 36 hours for the painkillers to leave the body. But about 36 hours post-surgery, you're like, what has just hit me? It was very sore.
And how does that affect your kind of appetite and how you could manage your nutrition through that first phase?
Yeah, so when you first wake up, a combination of all the medication you're on, the general anaesthetic, your stomach is in absolute bits. So eating is actually quite difficult. And this is something we spoke about before the surgery, was trying to make sure I could get enough protein in, enough just calories in general during that sort of 2-week period when I was at home, recovering from the acute surgery phase. That, and we put some strategies together. You gave me some recipes to help me with that, and one of the big things that I did was have kind of liquid calories. So I used whey protein with frozen fruit, yogurt, milk to try and get that calorie intake when it was difficult to have kind of harder foods. So that was a big part of it. And then I combined that with meal prep as well. So doing a little bit of prep myself, or actually Victoria, my girlfriend, doing the prep, and then not obviously because I don't help with the cooking, but just because I was incapacitated at the time. So having meal prep as well to sort of make sure I'm still getting in some of those macronutrients that you get from food as well. So a combination of those two was perfect. And actually, to be honest, like the big way with sort of mango berries in different combinations was a real lifesaver. So I was probably banging 2 or 3 of those a day.
I think it's always a surprise to you when you get injured, when I try and tell you still how much food and how much energy you actually need in that first phase. I think a lot of athletes, just suddenly go, well, I'm not training, I just don't need as much, and they undereat and underfuel, and then all of a sudden you see a big deficit in their lean mass especially, and then they try to get back to training and being active, and it's a big slog and it's difficult to get back. So role model as always, you did a great job in actioning that and doing that, which was fantastic. So what other things, were there any other products that you utilised during that period to try and support that first phase of maintaining your muscle but also healing?
So the big way was obviously the big one for that first sort of 2 weeks. Another big one was the repair shots. So during that kind of early stage where my movement was quite limited, I was just taking them sort of twice daily, just around my meals, and also one before bed, combined with the sort of a big protein intake before bed. So this is something that you've talked a lot about, is making sure you get that protein intake right before bed, particularly when I'm hyper conscious of maintaining my muscle mass whilst not doing anything. So certainly the repair shots was a big one at that stage, and that's continued in different forms in the other phases. We'll talk about that in a bit. And then also fish oils, so my omega-3, you've spoken about, and you can probably go into a little bit more detail about the science on the benefits that can have for maintaining muscle mass, as well as all the cognitive benefits that come with fish oils. But that was something that I actually doubled my intake of the fish oils during that acute phase, just to make sure that I was doing everything I could to maintain the muscle mass that I've worked so hard to put on.
And I think that's always your muscle needs to stay sensitive to all of that protein you eat. So the fish oil, the evidence is there that it may help with that muscle kind of staying sensitive to all the protein you eat. So we get the most from it as well to maintain it all, which is, again, really crucial as you're getting back into running now. You're feeling the benefits of that because you're not chasing muscle mass that you lost during that period. So it's meant you're, as much as it's a long time, it's been reasonably smooth in terms of that and that return. So, and then when we think about how we use that collagen and the repair during the rest of the rehab period, was there like a particular time that you would maybe use them around your rehab and things like that?
Yes, yeah. So I've been doing rehab every day, virtually for the whole of this process. It's obviously particularly important in that acute phase, the sort of first 12 to 14 weeks post surgery. So I would obviously have the repair shot in the evening, as discussed previously. And then I would also time having the repair shot about 30 minutes to 20 minutes before a rehab session. So something you've talked about before is the potential benefit of having this before you then go and do some focused training on a specific area of your body. So that I always try and time it where possible, 20 to 30 minutes before doing rehab on the knee.
Yeah, brilliant. And it just delivers that with more blood flow. Hopefully it just delivers all those little specific building blocks to those tendons and ligaments that are healing after you've had all that pretty gruesome surgery.
Yeah.
But it's a big episode. So obviously now you've returned pretty much from that injury now, but it leaves you sort of almost going straight into a pre-season.
Yeah.
Pretty challenging because obviously it extends that period you haven't necessarily played for, or you have played many games across that period now. How would you describe pre-season in 3 words? Try and encapsulate it for me.
Grueling is definitely one of them. Rewarding because of all the progress you make during the time. And then I would say recovery. So, a season of rugby takes a lot out of you. And actually pre-season's when you put back into the body and you rebuild yourself to go again. I'm sort of 10, 11 years into it now. So yeah, certainly recovering during that pre-season is really important, both physically and mentally.
Yeah. How's pre-season kind of changed over those years? 'Cause obviously 10, 11 years, sports science, different ways of training have evolved. Have you seen a change of what's been asked of you during those pre-seasons?
Oh yeah, it's like massive. And you haven't been in the environment, you'll know all about it. Well, I was actually speaking to someone just about the just a Gloucester the other day about how the nutrition's changed. I remember that very first year I came, so when I wasn't in there full time, I think it was a local pub were managing the food.
Yeah.
And it was like breakfast was sausages, chips, and occasionally you might have like a tomato or something.
Yeah.
Like a grilled tomato. So that was breakfast every day. Versus now, when we walk in, there's a full like yogurt. You've got yogurt on the side. We've got kefir options for your gut health. You've got homemade kombucha. There's porridge options. There's still those kind of protein bacon options. So the difference in terms of nutrition is astronomical.
Yeah.
But then also from a training perspective as well, like when we used to go in, it used to be sort of testing that wasn't necessarily overly rugby specific, I'd say. And I think now a lot of that testing has become more rugby specific, and whereas before you might do a massive block of very little, like time with ball in hand, I feel like the time with ball in hand has now gone up. So yes, there's still a lot of variation from team to team, from coach to coach. There's still so many different schools of thought as to what the best way is, but yeah, that would certainly be a big thing. Is everything, whether you're actually training or whether you're doing like physical testing, is so much more rugby specific, and it's also monitored. Everything was tracked a lot when I started, but now it's on another level. Like, with the GPSs, they can track everything with your jump scores. So, that's gone through the roof. And I think it'll be interesting over the next couple of years to see whether that data then becomes accessible for fans watching.
Yeah.
In games. I think probably in 2-3 years time, you'll be able to watch a game and like log on either to a portal. They'll show it on the screen of like what speed Ollie Thorley just hit or what speed whoever just hit.
How have your kind of goals changed? So, when you were a younger player coming into the squad as a full-time athlete, the goals then might be a bit different to now. How have that changed?
Like massive. I think in my first pre-season, I came in at maybe 88, 89 kilos, and I now sit sort of 10 kilos more than that. So a lot of it is about, when you're younger, building that lean muscle mass. Basically turning yourself into a rugby player, really. When you come out of school at 17, 18, you don't really necessarily know what it takes to be a rugby player, and physically, you're there in some aspects, but there's other aspects where you can level up. So when I first started, that was the big thing: building muscle mass, building durability.
It's gradual as well, isn't it? It doesn't just happen overnight. It's that kind of compounding effect of season on season when you're younger, that you have to keep building.
100%.
You can't just wake up after 12 weeks of pre-season and go, I'm now a first team player. You have to sort of have that gradual approach.
100%. And it's really cool seeing the younger guys coming through, going through that journey that I went on. And in fairness, the support that yourself and the team give the players at Gloucester now is compared to even when I started 10 years ago is amazing. So it's going to be incredible to see what those young guys are able to, what physical peaks they can hit in their careers. But yeah, and then now for me it's more about maintenance. I've got everything I need, and I've got a good understanding of how my body works, and the kind of fueling requirements I need when training, the fueling requirements I need when I'm not training, which is a big thing. And the supplementation that I can put in around that to make sure I'm at my physical peak, week in, week out. So yeah, it becomes more about that maintenance and ensuring that I stay at that level constantly. And there's always room for little improvements as well. So,
but you're building on a strong base now, aren't you?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's more about finessing rather than starting from zero. It's finessing.
And it's not, it's not magic bullets and things. It's not the 1%er still. It's probably it's the big things throughout the days in pre-season that make the big difference, isn't it? And how do you find, managing your appetite and understanding now, like you do, how much fuel and energy you need to get in? how do you find actually succeeding in that during pre-season when it's a busy schedule?
Yeah.
There's not many opportunities in a day.
Yeah. I mean, you have to be really disciplined, and know, like you said, when you're training, that your energy demands are enormous, and then coupled with also trying to build muscle mass during that period, or maintain muscle mass. It's incredibly demanding on the body. Your body's probably thinking, what on earth are you what on earth are you putting me through here? One of the biggest things is trying to eat enough, and so making sure you space your meals out appropriately. Having, at Gloucester we have refuel, now we have breakfast, we have a refuel, we have a lunch, then I'll often have a refuel when I get home, and then dinner. So sort of having multiple times in which you can get the fuel in is really beneficial. In a different context to like we were talking about an injury, but in pre-season as well, having things like a protein smoothie or something like that with berries in, so you're still getting sort of nutritional value from it as well, is fantastic. Just to kind of plug those gaps, particularly maybe after a session. Some people find it difficult to eat a lot after a session, so having something like that after a session, and then boxing your food up, having your food a little bit later, but making sure you still hit those fuel demands.
Yeah. What are your favourite kind of carb fuels that you have, breakfasts and at those refuels during pre-season when it's tough to eat? Do you have kind of preferences that you stick to?
I mean, at the club we get a lot of variation. We're incredibly lucky. So most of what we're served up is amazing. In terms, I have to say that. He's paid me to say that. Well, I mean, one of my favourites is actually just like a flapjack with like a multi-seed flapjack. Like people think of it as an unhealthy option, but when you're training at high intensity, you need those carbs, and it's a really carb dense food. Particularly if you make it yourself, it's not ultra processed. You can wax some maple syrup in it. It's delicious, so it means that you're actually going to eat it. So I think something like that is a really good option that you can slot in around training.
Yeah, that always seems to go down well.
Oh yeah, it gets hoovered up. It's often the staff members that seem to have the most so that does it's always a bit ominous.
I'll have to have a word with them.
Yeah.
When you talk about sort of obviously keeping hold of all that muscle mass, but also then that big focus for you now is repeatability and that high speed work. Is there anything in terms of products to support that which you find really beneficial during the
definitely. Probably the first one that comes to mind is a beta-alanine. So I definitely feel, like anecdotally, I feel a massive difference in terms of my sprint repeatability when I'm taking beta-alanine versus when I haven't. Particularly for a winger where a lot of my play is, you're kind of cruising for a period bit, and then suddenly you need to have a maximal effort, whether it's on a kick chase or whether you need to chase a ball through or whatever it is, or you've got the ball in your hand and you're going on the outside. So yeah, that would be the big one that comes to mind.
And how do you find that is there a particular time of day where you take that, or that you find it easier to take? Obviously, sometimes people get a little bit of side effects with it.
So it obviously depends on the load. But I personally find that I prefer taking it in the morning. Often with breakfast, it's a really good time to do it, or with a brunch or lunch, or in a kind of refuel slot between the two. So that definitely makes a big difference. Yeah.
And then anything else which just supports that kind of that high work capacity and volume, as well as building that muscle level back up?
100% creatine. So I think it's widely talked about. Across media channels and everything, and it's been around for decades as a supplement. Like creatine's one of the best things you can take, full stop. Even if I wasn't an athlete, I would take creatine for both my physical health and brain health. So creatine's probably my absolute go-to supplement, regardless of whether you're an athlete or not.
Yeah. And obviously as well, we want to make sure that we complete as much of pre-season as possible. So limiting any days lost due to injury or illness is really key. So meeting your fuel needs around your immune system health is really big. But is there anything that you keep doing throughout the summer as well, which we might think of as a winter protocol, but actually it's something you do all year?
Yeah, it's a good point. obviously in this country, the sun's not particularly consistent. You know, we're lucky at the moment, but so yeah, so vitamin D. Obviously, like you said, in the winter period, it's a complete given. But you know, just to make sure that we're still hitting our needs, vitamin D during the pre-season and throughout the year is something I take. And it's recommended to all of us within the team. So yeah, you know, if you lose a day of training, it's not just a day of training you're losing, you're then losing momentum, and it can affect a whole week, so it's massive, yeah.
Recovery meals, like we said, are really, really important. You're a great cook. What are the things what's the meal that you look forward to making in the evenings when you know you've got a big recovery meal, big session the following day?
Yeah.
What are you going to cook?
When you're knackered during pre-season, you want something easy, so it's a one pot gnocchi with sausage meat on top. Yeah, cherry tomatoes, mozzarella, basil, all just literally thrown in, and then, you know, bake it for 20 minutes. That is honestly my absolute go-to. It's so easy and it's delicious.
Nice, perfect.
I'll get there. I will get there.
Do you want to take the
Sorry, I need to stop. I can't say sorry.